Hey up everybody and welcome back. So we're going to continue with this. The eagle-eyed among you may notice that this is already off, but I don't do it until later in the video because I waited a couple of days to look at the comments, see if I had anything to answer, because as I say, I'm sort of back to filming in the week after each video. So three things to mention before we really get going this week. One is sort of comment related, in that I notice I've got 2,400 and something subscribers, and I can remember when I had 10 and sort of getting to the first 100 and everything. So that's really good, and all in all, with the exception of a handful of people who were, shall we say, less than complimentary, it's all been to the good. Second thing I want to mention is, after last week's video, which I was pleased to see everybody's interested in the Henderson, I got an email from a gentleman by the name of Axel Tramp, and all it said was might help, but there was an attachment, and when I opened the attachment it was a Henderson parts book. Actually, the interesting thing is, I don't know if you can really see at this distance, but instead of exploded diagrams, they've literally laid all the parts out on a sheet and then taken a photograph of them and then written little numbers next to them for the list. But that is going to be great, so thank you very much, Mr. Axel Tramp. So the final thing is, I mentioned in last week's video that I had a couple of pictures of the car Look, which is L-O-O-K, not look as in good luck. So let me show you them so that you know what this engine is going into, and then we'll get stuck in. As I say, you'll see me take this part out here, but what I'm going to do is just take all the little screws out so we can take the top off. So first of all, here's the race car. Now, I was just messing about with this, and it turns out that it's just a press fit into there, because I noticed that when I bumped it a couple of times it seemed to move. But that is now, feels as if it's up against something else. Okay, so take that off. I'm going to pull this off because it looks as if there's another collar on the inside, which strikes me as odd. Possibly it isn't, but anyway, let me get something to get this off without damaging anything. Oh, by the way, I've noticed a couple of times in videos when I use this it's too bright, so there you go. I hope that's alright. I've got to remember to stop using it. Well, this just actually twisted out without too much trouble, came out, but what's holding it is back here, just in between, well, halfway along in between the second and third cylinders, there's a bolt up mounting with another bush in it, so we won't be able to get to that and take the camshaft out until we split these cases. So let's get on and do that. I've taken all the little screws and bolts, well, screws and nuts out. There's a couple of bolts in this end, but before I do that I just wanted to show you this. Two things really. One is there's a little, I don't know if that's meant to be there, I mean it fits, but and the top casing is cut out so that it'll go in, but it's a little clevis pin. So find out what that's for later. But the other thing I wanted to show you was this. Not only does this gearbox turn, but it'll actually go into gear. Seems to be first. Where are we? Neutral. Second. There's another one there. Maybe that was hoping for too much, but anyway. That bodes well. So I'm going to leave all these levers and stuff on the top, because what I'm hoping is that there only seems to be the one shaft that's laying in the bottom. All the rest of the gearboxes and the gear change mechanism seems to be held in here. I'm hoping it'll just come off in one. It's going to be a pretty heavy lump because we've got the crank and everything like that. But we'll see what we can do. So let me get these last few bolts out and then we'll see if we can lift the top off. And I'll show you this, but it's more to help me. Funnily enough, I've just been putting together the topper frame and stuff. And even with the photographs, I couldn't remember half of it. But I went back and watched the video and I realised where things went. So anyway, when I took this bolt out here, it held the end of the kickstart return spring. And then there's another little lock bolt here, which again, well, I sprayed some Croil on it, but it came loose straight away. So that comes out and that goes on there. Alright, now I've got every fastener out that I can find, and it has that sort of hollow sound that you get when a case is wanting to come apart. But it's not moving. I mean, it might just be stuck down. But what I'm going to do, just to be on the safe side, is take these off, just to make sure the case doesn't slide off them. I don't see how it can. Surely all the gear shafts and everything have got to be in this top half. But, as I say, it sounds as if it's trying to come off, but it's just not moving. So I've put them to soak. We'll take them off and then we'll try again. Now, I've found out what's stopping this coming off. And it's actually a who. It's Isaac Newton. The simple fact is, it's bloody heavy. You can see that it's ready to come off, but it's going to need some form of lifting device, which generally means that I use a George. So, you know, I was going to build a gantry, a little rolling gantry crane for in here. I guess I'd better do it. Anyway, let me find George. Oh, I'm getting a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Let me find George and then we can lift this whole thing off. While I was waiting to get some help lifting this thing apart, I was talking to my friend Dick, who is a machinist par excellence, and he mentioned that in some of the older engines, the pin, the gudgeon pin, or wrist pin as they call it here, was held in with a clamp. Now you may remember I couldn't see any clips in this, and sure enough, see the bolt head there? I looked in the parts book I'd been given, and there's a clamp. So let me move the camera out the way so we're a bit safer, and I'll try taking that out, see if we can get the gudgeon pin out and get the piston off. Right, it's a 7/16 head, so oh. Now this is actually like a clamp from the parts book. So, hang on. We'll stick a bit of stuff in the harmy. It doesn't matter if it drops in the bottom because we're actually going into the bottom. But where's the thing? Let's take it off and we can actually have a look at it. There's the bolt out. Oh yeah. Oh yes, the pin's coming out. Let's get something to push it out with. Now of course I've actually got the camera stood right in front of the drawers on the tool chest, so I can't get into there, so we'll try it with this. Came out part of the way. Now why doesn't it want to come out? Ooh. Let's see what we can see. Alright, let me work on it a little bit and I'll bring you back if I can get it out. Well, I might as well have stayed with me because I gave it one tap and it just fell straight out. And there you can see it's a split clamp, like a pair of clip-ons or something. And then in here, on either side, oh look at that, look at that. See what the other one's like. The other one doesn't want to come out. But look at that, that was banging away and it's worn right through it and split it off. Wonder if we can get these, or are we going to have to make them? Okay, I'll go and see if I can find George again. I thought I'd give you a bit of a closer look at these. There's the piston off, and you notice the gudgeon pin has got a little relief for that clamp bolt to go in to hold the pin so it won't twist. Well, it won't twist, and I guess it won't move side to side, so that holds the pin in nicely. I knocked out the other bush. There's what the bush should look like, and there is what that bush looks like. So that's been banging up and down and completely worn that through and broken it away and everything. And actually there's some play in the big end as well. So that's what the first piston and its bits and pieces look like. Keep our fingers crossed for the rest. There we go. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing safely off here. You ready? Yep. There it is. There we go. Ooh. Alright, let me pull you out a little bit here, because if anybody's going to do any heavy lifting, I advise you to get for your workshop a George. Now don't get a cheap one, get an expensive one like I have. So there it is, crud down there. There's our bevel gear. Okay. Now let's see what we've got. Right, well, absolutely everything is either wired or has split pins in. And this big sort of bush in here with has holes in, there's another one at the bottom. There's actually a pin in the bottom case to locate that so it doesn't spin. There's only one selector fork. See if we can get that. Alright, that comes out. There's our bevel gear, and that gear and the corresponding one in there are badly worn. In fact, that one's got the teeth are chipped on the leading edge. Here's the kickstart mechanism. So let me bring you around and I'll show you this. There's our clutch in there. I guess there's a thrust bearing in here. This is the lever for that. And there's an adjuster for something. It's got a wire hole in it. It's got a slot in it. I don't know if you can see how badly they're worn there. So anyway, I can take all this out and get the crank out now. And funnily enough, again, you don't think of things. George just mentioned that when I've got the crank out, let me bring it back around this side again. But once I've taken the end caps off, I can pull the barrel off with the piston stuck in it and the rod and work on it on the bench. So that's going to make things a lot easier. So that's the next thing. We will start stripping all this off. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'll take all the end caps off, because the actually, if I take the end caps off so the barrels come off, this whole thing will go back into the stand. I can take the sump out and just put it in the stand, and I can work on this without having this strange angle. So I'll do that. So let me show you in the sump. So here's the sump, and that's all it is. It's got like a baffle in the bottom, and all this stuff are seeds. The whole thing's full of it. So we've had a mouse or a chipmunk or something living in here wherever it was. So we'll get all this cleaned up. Alright, then the next thing is to take those barrels off. Well, I've been scraping around in the sump here, and I thought you might like to see how much stuff there was in here. This is the oil filter for the supply side to the pump. So apart from the nuts and everything, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I'll clean this out and wash it up, and there's stuff everywhere. It's horrible. Alright, let's get on with other stuff. Now then, as I mentioned, or as you saw anyway, all of these nuts are either got split pins in or they're wired up. So we'll take this big end cap off, because this is the barrel where we're halfway off. So we'll get that one off, and then obviously the rest are just more of the same. Excuse me. Alright, we're back. So, while I was talking on the phone, I managed to pull the split pins out. So let's see what we can do here. I just spent the last couple of days down in Wilmington, Delaware with Steam Shop, where we were getting this 8-foot bed planer that he's got coming. So we were able to take down this big line shaft, and this thing is actually working. The machine shop that was in still uses it, although obviously they're not going to use it anymore, but it's better than finding some old thing in a barn. So anyway, we got it moved out to the door and everything, so that's going to be picked up next week. Alright, one end cap. What's that? That's a tiny bit of... looks like brass. Heh. Okay. I'll put these all in their boxes to keep everything together, but there we go. We can take all of these off now. There's two little stamp marks on that and on that side. Oh, that's what that... I bet that little bit of brass came off that there and got into the shell. Okay. Well, I'll put these all together, put them in the appropriate box, and then, as I say, I'll take off these other two, and then I'll bring it back. We can see about taking the crank out with the flywheel, and then I'm going to put this upside down. Well, I'll clean it off, put it upside down in the engine stand. In fact, I might do that to take the crank out. So until later. Now I've got them all out and I'll show you them individually in a minute, but now that they're out, our crank turns, and it actually doesn't seem to have any play in it, as much as I can tell, just like that. Now the journals, you can see watermarks in that one, and that one. That one's got some rust on the back of it, and that one is the worst of the lot, and funnily enough that's the cylinder you'll see which is the worst as well as far as rust goes. So let me move you around so I can show you the individual cylinders. Alright, let's see what we can see. I've drawn a couple of little lines on here so I can try and keep everything right. Okay, so this is number one, and oh, that has started to break up. The lining's coming off the... These seem to be brass shells with, I don't know, maybe a lining on them, but that's started to break up on that one. This is number two, and this one has actually got a big chunk broken out of here, and this one had a lock washer on it. And where are we? Go back here. Number one is stamped up 1 and 1. Number two has some pips on it here, but nothing at all on that side. Now here's number three. Number three is starting to break up a little bit. You can actually see the sort of stuff on it there. Number three has got 3 pips on it, and it's got a number 3 stamped on it. Now, look at this. It's got 3 pips and 3 pips, and number 3 stamped there, and I took great care taking these off. The number 3 stamped there. But of course the thing we're really looking at here is this. Let's see if I can... oh, I'm getting all dirty. Ugh. There is why I think the pistons don't come out. It's this crud underneath here. So I'm going to try and clean that out and then get the pistons out. That was number 3. And here's number 4. Now number 4, actually the inside isn't bad, but it's a lot drier than the others were, and that piston is really stuck in there at the bottom, and look how bad the rust is here. Okay, and this one as well actually has slightly different nuts. So let me put those to one side and we'll go back to the actual cases and the crank. Alright, belay that instruction about putting this half upside down in the engine cradle I made, because the holes are only in the bottom casing, so there's nothing to put this in. So there you go. The best laid plans of what's it and thingies. So we'll do it here. Right. Now I noticed there are some numbers stamped. Certainly there's a number 5 on that. And the one at the very end here, which is out of sight for you for the moment, is 8. But I can't see, there's like a strap across there. So we'll take this middle one out. Same procedure as last time. We'll take one out so you can see what's what, and then I'll take the rest out. Now then. Blah, 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 blah. Actually, let's snip that again. There. And snip that one. There. Okay. 1. 2. Oh, they were tighter. See, I don't really need a deep well one there, do I? Let's get an ordinary 9/16. Get a better pull at it. There we go. So once again we'll take these off and we'll lay everything out very carefully to make sure it all goes back the way it came off. So I'll lay those out that way. That way. That way. And there's a shell in there. Goes with that like that. Rusty, watery. Well, that one's got noticeable marks on it. We might have to get this crank reground, but then we can only get reground if we know we can get undersized shells. There's a chap here, sort of a bit like Steam Shop. He's been regrinding cranks forever. You go in, it's a really old looking machine shop, but I've had cranks ground by him and they're spot on, so he can do this. So let me take these two out, and the one on the other side of here. I'll find out if there's any numbers under these, and then I'll bring you back. Ooh, let me take a glove off before I touch the camera. Alright, see you later. Now I've got all the nuts slackened off and everything, so let's see about taking this crank out. Come on now. There's that. There's that. There's the shell. This one's got, oh, they've all got some shims. I'll leave them there so I know which is which. That. Now that has got a bit that's actually catching. I wonder if I can. There you go, Michael. See? Don't panic. That has an R stamped on the top of it, that shell. Come on now. Oh no, that has a wider boss than the others, and that is catching against the nuts. That's going to have to come out with the crank. So you get this last one from the gearbox side. That one's come out. Oh, that's interesting. You can't see that, can you? I'll show you when I take the crank out. Let me move this back a bit. Yeah, some nasty. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Hang on. Okay, let me see if I can get this out. I bet it's the camshaft that was catching on that. Let's see why it should, unless that actually pokes all the way through. Nope, that's catching on something on this side. Now then, you can't quite see this, but the bevel gear actually has some splines that came out the end of the crankshaft. Oh, in fact it's not splines, it's got keys in it. It's got 4 keys in it. You see that? 4 keys. Try again. I don't see how it can have been that, otherwise it wouldn't have come out. Yeah, it's that, oh, that's underneath it. I don't see why that should hold it. does seem to be this bush at this end. There's very tiny, well not tiny, very thin shims. Take that off, put it there so we know which one it is. And that piece goes underneath that shim. Sure this end is lifting up. That end's coming out completely clear. Seems as if it's this clutch mechanism. Let me move you around and we'll all have a look at this. Right, I'll try and show you this with, I don't know how bright a light it'll take because I don't want to overdo things. There's a plate with 2 bolts in it down there. So it's about in the right place to be holding this in. I don't see how the clutch operating mechanism here can be holding it in, because as you can see it just rests in those. So I've got to take this out to get at those. So as you can see they're wired again, and we've got numbers, look. We've got a number 2 there, we've got a number 2 there. We've got a number 3 there, and this shell was numbered 3. Okay. And we've got a number 1 on that there. Now this here is the kickstart bit. So you can see it moves on a spring. See that? So I'm gonna have, I think I'm gonna have to take that out. Actually it might just come off it, but I'll take it out. But we have a slight problem there. Let me move you around and show you again. Now here's where the kickstart lever goes in. And this plate is held on with 4 screws. 3 of them, I was all getting ready to, you know, fight my way out. Again, I have soaked all this in Croil, but 3 of them came out perfectly. And this 4th one was like that. The head's sheared off and it seems to be holding it. So I'm just going to drill into there a little bit and then take this off. Now I've got that drilled, but the sort of plate it's on seems to be stuck a little. So what I'm going to try and do is see if we can at least get this out here, because there's about 1 inch of space at the bottom, so we might be able to pull it off. So I've taken the wire off and slacken these nuts. So let's see what happens here. Of course, I'm probably going to find that this won't come out with a selector fork in, but the selector fork's got a rod that goes through, and it's a bit cruddy at this end. I should be able to get it out, I think. Right, Let's see if these are just end caps or if these have got bushings or something in. Come on now. There, this one's coming. Yeah, here it comes. And there's number one. No, because of the way it's in the caps, it won't move, so I've got to get this thing off here. Will that come out? Oh, yes it does. Yes it does. Right, so that comes out of there. There's little shims on all of these. Now then, I'll see now if I can get down to those two bolts. Now those two bolts down there are just the little pinch bolts for the clamp that holds the clutch fork onto the shaft. So I don't see how they can do anything. Anyway, I've taken the nut off the top of the shaft there, but the actuating arm doesn't want to come off. But this seems to be as if it's something on this side. It's like this bushing doesn't want to come out. But when I shine a light down, there's absolutely nothing on either side of this flywheel that could be holding it in. So I think it's just going to be a case of turning and joggling, and there's probably one particular way that it goes in, and only one. I thought that should just come out. All right. Now what I'm going to do for now is just put all these caps back on so that I know where they go, and then I'll see about getting the camshaft out. But that's it for the day, and as I say, I was away for a couple of days this week helping Dave to move this thing, so we're at the weekend. I'm going to let that be enough for you for this week. So until I see you again, enjoy yourselves.